I paid for the whole family reunion, venue, food, travel, even the matching t-shirts they handed out to everyone. Mine had, "Biggest Disappointment," printed across the front. I didn't argue. I just smiled, reached into my bag, pulled out a thick stack of papers, tore them right down the middle, and walked out. Took them a whole hour to realize what I'd destroyed, and then the calls started flooding in. I'd love to pretend I didn't see that coming. Like it smacked me out of nowhere. But truth is, it felt more like confirming something I'd been trying not to believe. Like finally spotting the last piece of a puzzle you'd hoped wasn't real. I stood there for a second, staring at those bold black words on the shirt like they were tattooed on my chest. Biggest disappointment. Classy. My sister Julie was already giggling. "It's just a joke, Martin," she said, and Joe gave a lazy shrug from across the table, beer balanced in one hand. "Come on, man. You gotta admit, it's kinda funny." That came from my parents. They didn't say much at first. Then my mom let out this soft little laugh, the kind people do when someone tells a slightly off-color joke in a church meeting. Dad just shook his head, grinning like I'd tripped and spilled a drink or something. I nodded once. Then again, a bit slower. Right. Hilarious. I folded the shirt nice and tidy and laid it on the edge of my plate. Nobody noticed my hands trembling, or if they did, they figured it wasn't worth mentioning. Honestly, I don't know what I expected. I footed the bill for everything, booked the place, paid for the food, even covered those shirts. That's the real kicker, isn't it? They used my credit card to label me a joke. Real comedy gold. I spent months planning this weekend. Reserved that old lakeside house they always used to rave about, thinking maybe, just maybe, some warm memories might soften things. Maybe I'd feel like I belonged again. Instead, I got a walking billboard reminder of exactly where I stood with them. And the weirdest part? I didn't even feel mad. Just worn out. That deep down kind of tired that settles in your bones and doesn't leave. I scooted my chair back and stood up. Gave a smile. Be right back. Walked upstairs to the guest room, well, my room technically, since I rented the whole place, and opened my bag. The folder was right where I'd left it. Thick. Crisp. Heavy. I'd had the documents printed on fancy parchment, something that felt meaningful in your hands. Something they could keep. I even thought about bringing champagne to go along with the news. Instead, I came back downstairs, stopped just behind my empty chair. No one even glanced up. They were too busy trying to snap the perfect group selfie in their new shirts. So I reached into the folder. Pulled out the papers. And without saying a word, I started tearing them, slowly, carefully, one sheet at a time. Julie noticed first. "Wait, what is that?" Joe's brow furrowed. "Dude, is that some kind of contract?" I didn't answer. My dad started to rise from his seat. "William." I laid the shredded papers in front of my untouched plate. Smiled again. This time, smaller. Tighter. "Hope you enjoy the shirts." Then I turned and left. No yelling. No slamming doors. Just the soft thud of my footsteps on the old wooden floor, the screen door creaking behind me, and the cool night air wrapping around me like something I didn't know I'd needed. Didn't even grab my jacket. Didn't feel like I needed it. I was halfway to the car when the first call came in. Then another. Then 3 more, like a dam finally giving out. I didn't answer. Not yet. Let them sit with it a while. Let them read what I'd torn up. Let them feel it. I sat there in the driver's seat for a good 10 minutes before I even turned the key. Just staring at my hands on the wheel. Still calm. Too calm, honestly. Like the rest of me hadn't caught up to what just happened. But the thing that kept playing over and over in my head. They laughed. My mom. My siblings. Even my dad. Like calling me their biggest disappointment was just another cute family thing. Just another joke, right up there with Julie's snide Christmas cards and Joe's cracks about me being single. But it wasn't just a joke. And it wasn't new. I could trace that feeling all the way back to when I was 9. That was the year Joe smashed the neighbor's window with a baseball. I got grounded for not stopping him. Julie lied about failing a test, and somehow I got the lecture about being a bad influence. Every screw-up in that house seemed to carry my name, even if I wasn't anywhere near it. When I was 12, I got my first C in math. I cried. Not because of the grade, but because I already knew what came next. Sarcastic jabs at dinner, Mom's exaggerated sigh, Dad's quiet shake of the head. Meanwhile, Joe could tank an entire semester and still get $20 for putting in the effort. At 17, I begged them to co-sign a small student loan. Didn't ask for money, just a signature. They told me no. Said I needed to learn responsibility. By then, Joe had totaled 2 cars. Julie was off in Europe for a photography course they helped pay for. But I needed to be responsible. So I worked nights. Slept 4 hours a day. Built something from scratch. First it was a tech service, then a subscription platform. Taught myself to code, to pitch, to take rejection on the chin and keep going. I wasn't asking for a parade. But a little acknowledgement would have gone a long way. We're proud of you, maybe. Instead, I became the punchline. The odd one out. The guy who always showed up late to Thanksgiving because, hey, he's probably coding in some basement. When I landed my first 6-figure investment, I didn't tell a soul. When I paid off all my student debt in one go. Kept that to myself too. When my company finally went viral, still nothing. Because deep down, I knew what would happen. They'd either make fun of it, twist it into another jab, or worse, take credit. So I stayed quiet. But I watched. Watched Julie throw parties in apartments I knew she couldn't afford on her job. Watched Joe post cryptic captions about mental health journeys, then hit me up for cash a couple days later. Watched my parents struggle with their mortgage but still managed to book anniversary cruises. And I started helping. Quietly. No names attached. Anonymous donations. I'd made a few quiet transfers here and there, untraceable, anonymous, because deep down, even after everything, I still wanted to believe in the idea of family. I figured maybe, just maybe, if I gave enough, they'd finally start to see me. But that illusion finally cracked wide open last Christmas. I offered to fly everyone out to this cozy little ski lodge I'd rented. Thought it'd be something special. My mom told me not to waste my money, then went on Facebook and posted this glowing update about how Julie had surprised everyone with a family-funded holiday. That's when I made up my mind. No more staying in the shadows. The reunion I just walked out of. That was supposed to be the big moment. The reveal. The real one. I had it all planned out to the last detail. There was a notarized letter in that folder, one that wiped my parents' mortgage clean and gave them the gift of early retirement. There was a contract offering Julie a down payment for a new place in a better school district for her kids. I even had a debt relief plan drawn up for Joe. Threw in a job referral too, if he ever wanted to hit reset and start over. Every single document was legit, signed, sealed, printed on thick linen stock that felt important when you held it. I even chose navy blue folders to match the table settings. That's how far I went. I wanted it to be beautiful. Something they'd never forget. In my head, I pictured the whole scene. I saw my mom's face as she read that letter, saw the tears forming, the way her pride might finally show through. I imagined my dad standing up, silent for once, reaching out to shake my hand. I thought maybe Julie would admit, I was wrong about you. Maybe Joe would mutter, damn, man. I didn't know. I imagined so much. But what I got instead, was a gag gift. A joke on a t-shirt. And I know what you're probably thinking, maybe they didn't mean it like that. Maybe it was just bad timing or some twisted sense of humor. Maybe if I'd told them what I was planning, they would have reacted differently. But here's the thing, they knew. Maybe not the full picture, but they had a sense. They'd seen the car I drove. Noticed the clothes. The way people responded when I casually mentioned the name of my company. Hell, my mom even asked once if I was doing alright financially, but in that weird, overly careful tone people use when they're fishing for info without wanting to sound impressed. They knew. And they didn't care. Or worse, they did care, but hated what it said about them. So instead of acknowledging it, they laughed. Because keeping me boxed up as the family screw-up was easier than admitting they might have misjudged me. But now they were going to find out exactly what I'd torn up in front of them. Not just them, everyone. Everyone who ever heard them talk about poor William. Everyone who bought into the idea that I was just some sad guy bouncing between failed side hustles. They were about to see the truth. But before that truth came out, things had to get messier. Because I hadn't even seen the spin yet. The version of events they were already stitching together in the background. That hit me before I even made it back to the city. First it was a call from a buddy I hadn't heard from in months. Hey man, your sister just posted something weird, said you had a breakdown at the reunion. Everything good? Breakdown. That's the word she used. I opened Facebook, and there it was. A photo from earlier that night, shirts neatly laid out, wine glasses filled, a cake dead center on the table. And the caption? Some people just can't handle being part of a family. We still love you. Even when you self-sabotage. No names. No direct call-out. But come on, we all know who she meant. The comments were loaded with vague sympathy and supportive nonsense. So sorry girl. You deserve better. Family can be so toxic. Sending hugs. That would have been bad enough. But then came the group chat notifications. Pings lighting up my phone like a slot machine. Screenshots. Forwarded messages. My aunt reached out, said my mom called her in tears. Said I'd had some kind of meltdown. Destroyed legal paperwork in what she described as a manic episode. Then Joe texted me straight up. You seriously need help, man. You embarrassed everybody. We tried to include you, and you made it weird. Real classy. Include me? That's rich. I didn't reply. Just forwarded all the original documents to my attorney, asked him to timestamp the email. CC'd my assistant too. 5 minutes later, she messaged back, want me to move the Forbes feature up to this weekend? I can include the scans again. Yes. That. Because here's the truth, this time, I had options. I had proof. Paper trails. Receipts. All they had was a story. A sloppy, one-sided version of events they were pushing harder the more it started to unravel. And my family? They were experts at rewriting history on the fly. But I wasn't letting them do it this time. I'd let them paint me into the role of the failure for way too long. Now, it was my turn. I started simple. Quiet. Just posted the Forbes article, no caption, no tag, no comment. Just the link. The headline said it all, the underdog founder who secretly supported his family for a decade, until he walked away. The photos were in there, scanned copies of the documents I'd torn up at the reunion. Dated. Signed. Clear as day. The article detailed the company's valuation, somewhere north of $35 million. Talked about the anonymous donations I'd made. The mortgage payments. The college funds I'd quietly set up under different names. It mentioned the mentorship grant I'd launched a few months back, for kids who, like me, were written off by their own families. And right near the end, it explained why I walked away. Not out of anger, but clarity. Within hours, my inbox was flooded. First came the congrats. Then the apologies. Then the panic. A voicemail from Julie, "Why would you make that public? You're humiliating us." Joe's text, "Wow. Real mature. Hope you feel good about dragging the family name through the mud. My mom, we need to talk. You misunderstood the joke. We were just playing around." Misunderstood. A joke. They really couldn't help themselves. But it wasn't over, not by a long shot. The story was starting to gain traction. A YouTube creator covered it. Then a podcast host. Then someone made a mini-doc. The comments came fast. People started picking sides. But mostly, they picked mine. Because folks recognize shame when it's dressed up as tradition. They know what it looks like when cruelty hides behind a smile and calls itself family. Joe tried clapping back online. Said I was unstable. Claimed I twisted everything. Someone replied with a screenshot of the exact contract I'd written for him. Annotated. Dated. Someone dug up an old tweet where Julie joked about being the golden child. Felt harmless back then. Not so funny now. A tech influencer, someone I'd never even heard of, shared the Forbes piece with this caption. "Let this be a reminder, not every black sheep is lost. Some are just done with wolves in sweaters." That line. It stuck. They tried to discredit me. Paint me as unstable. The problem. But instead, they just exposed themselves. And still, I hadn't said a single word in public. Not once. Because I didn't need to. I had something better than a comeback. I had receipts. And now, I had the world paying attention. You'd think after that, after the article, the fallout, the messages, they'd finally let it go. But they didn't. They doubled down. Joe posted some long thread full of half-truths and stretched memories. Said I was exaggerating, that I always felt left out, no matter how hard they tried. Julie took the quiet route. Started working the extended family circuit. Said I wasn't well. That I'd let the money get to my head. That I left not because of a joke, but because I was always looking for an excuse to walk away. My parents? They didn't say anything online. But I know they were making calls. Whispering their version. He misunderstood. It's all a big miscommunication. It's just so sad. I watched them try to patch together their version of events like they always did. The difference now? No one was buying it. People they called started reaching out to me. Quietly. A cousin messaged me, said she always noticed the way I got treated. A former neighbor said she remembered hearing my mom call me a late bloomer, even while bragging about Joe's internship, at a company I now own a chunk of. But the part that landed hardest wasn't what they were saying. It was what I realized. I'd spent so much of my life hoping they would change, I didn't notice how much I already had. I wasn't the kid trying to earn a spot at their table anymore. I had my own table now. And in the silence that came after that realization, I felt peace. Real peace. Maybe for the first time in years. They sent a letter eventually. Not an apology. Just a neatly worded "We're still your family and we love you and we hope you can move past this." Move past it. Like I threw a tantrum and needed to cool off. Like I'd overreacted. I didn't reply. A week later, another letter. Longer. This one tried the sentimental angle. Brought up childhood. Rides to school. Family dinners. A roof. Like that canceled out everything else. Like that made it okay. They never brought up the money. Or the years of little cuts passed off as jokes. Or how fast they threw me under the bus when I finally stopped saying yes. Then one day, Joe posted this photo of us as kids. Captioned it, "Miss my brother. Still love him. Always will." I got tagged. A lot. People waited to see what I'd say. But the truth is, I didn't owe them anything. Not the people in that photo. Not the ones wearing those t-shirts. The only people I ever owed were the ones who stuck around when I had nothing to offer but potential. So I stayed quiet. And in that silence, things kept shifting. Julie's husband left. Guess he got tired of the victim narrative she kept spinning. Took the kids. Moved in with his sister. I didn't hear it from her. Someone else told me. Joe lost a speaking gig. Just a small thing, but apparently someone sent the organizers the full article, along with an old clip of him on a podcast, talking about how his brother never finishes anything he starts. My parents tried refinancing their house. Didn't go through. Friend of mine in finance said the bank flagged instability. Not my fault. Not directly. But I had stopped the monthly transfer. That part. That was me. And then. I started living. Not out of revenge. Just finally, freely. I traveled without feeling like I needed to keep one eye on my phone. Made choices without wondering if they'd be proud this time. Built things because I wanted to, not to prove I could. Then one night, out of nowhere, I got this message from someone I didn't know. Just a single sentence. "Thank you for showing people like me that it's okay to walk away." That one hit different. Not because I needed the praise. But because it reminded me, leaving wasn't selfish. It was survival. I was never angry they didn't love me the way I needed. I was angry that they pretended they did, while tearing me down every time I stood a little taller. That night, I opened this old box I hadn't touched in forever. Inside were copies of the original documents. The ones I tore up. I ran my fingers over the paper. Thick. Cream-colored. Still firm where the first set had ripped. It didn't feel like a loss anymore. It felt like closure. I don't know where they are now. I don't check. Sometimes people send me updates. I delete them before I finish reading. It's not because I don't care. It's because the version of me who needed their approval. He doesn't live here anymore. He's gone. And he's not coming back. Update. 2 years later. Got invited to a wedding recently. Not family. A friend. One of the few who saw the worst of it and stayed. At the reception, someone introduced me to their cousin. She smiled, shook my hand. Then paused. "Wait, are you the t-shirt guy?" I actually laughed. "For real?" "Yeah," I said. "Guess I am." She told me she cut off her own parents last year. Said my story gave her the push. I didn't know what to say. Still don't, really. But it stuck with me. Because for the longest time, I thought leaving meant giving up. Like it was surrender. But now I see it clearly. Walking away. That was the first time I ever stood up. Sometimes I wonder if they still talk about me. If they tell the story differently now. If they miss me, or just miss who they could control. I don't reach out. And they haven't either. Not in a long time. Maybe that says everything. Did I go too far? Or not far enough? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe.